There is an alchemy that few men master: the ability to transform pure sexual energy into focus, unwavering discipline, and magnetic opportunity. Carl Jung called it the sublimation of the libido, the most revolutionary process a man can learn. While most men waste their most powerful life energy in empty, scattered, aimless moments of pleasure devoid of true magnetism, some have discovered the ancient secret. They don't repress their sexual energy, they transform it, harnessing absolute focus and their ability to manifest realities. Jung demonstrated that sexual energy is not just a reproductive drive. It is the raw material of genius, artistic creation, natural leadership, and material success. By learning to redirect this force, you don't just transform your life. You rewrite the laws of reality around you. In the next few minutes, you'll discover Jung's exact method for transforming our sexual energy into manifest power. How can you channel this primordial force to develop supernatural focus, iron discipline, and attract opportunities like a human magnet? This isn't a psychological theory. It's a technology for personal transformation. If you feel your energy is scattered, if you have trouble focusing on your goals, if opportunities are slipping away, persevere. Jung's teachings can transform you from an ordinary person into an unstoppable creative force. Carl Gustav Jung made a discovery that shook the foundations of modern psychology. He realized that sexual energy, which he called libido, was not just a biological reproductive instinct. It was the primary source of all creativity, ambition, and transformative power in human beings. After decades of study and self-observation, Jung discovered that the most creative, productive, and exceptionally magnetic individuals shared one characteristic. They knew how to redirect their sexual energy toward higher goals. They didn't repress it out of morality, they transformed it into genius. Jung observed that artists, during periods of sexual abstinence, created their masterpieces. Scientists who channeled their libido into research made revolutionary discoveries. Leaders who mastered their sexual energy developed magnetic charisma and the ability to influence the masses. The connection was undeniable. The Swiss psychologist understood that sexual energy possesses a unique quality. It is the only human force capable of completely transforming itself into something else. If hunger always remains hunger and thirst always thirst, sexual energy can transform into artistic inspiration, entrepreneurial determination, intellectual focus, or leadership power. This discovery led Jung to develop the concept of sublimation. Conscious, unlike Freudian repression, which simply relegated impulses to the unconscious, Jungian sublimation was an active process of energetic redirection. Men did not deny their sexuality. They elevated it to a higher level. Jung observed that men who practiced conscious sublimation developed what he called the penetrating gaze, a visual intensity that communicated a concentrated inner power. Their presence became magnetic because they radiated refined, rather than wasted sexual energy. They were men others instinctively respected and followed. The process was not automatic. It required a deep understanding of the psychological mechanisms involved. Jung discovered that sexual energy, when not physically released, created psychic pressure that could be consciously directed. Like water vapor, which can drive turbines or simply evaporate, conserved libido could generate energy or be uselessly dissipated. The key lay in what Jung called the transcendent function, the psyche's ability to transform internal conflicts into higher creative syntheses. When a man felt sexual tension but chose not to release it, it became the engine of transcendence. Sexual energy moved up the spine, nourishing the brain centers responsible for creativity and concentration. Jung documented how this practice transformed not only the individual, but also their ability to influence their environment. Men undergoing conscious sublimation attracted seemingly random opportunities. Their ideas were more readily accepted. Their projects flourished in inexplicable ways. It was as if their focused energy altered the probabilities around them. The most fascinating aspect of Jung's discovery lay in the understanding that sublimated sexual energy did not diminish personal magnetism, but rather intensified it exponentially. Men who practiced transmutation became more attractive, not less. Their refined and focused sexual energy radiated a density that others perceived as pure power. Jung also observed that sublimating the libido accelerates the process of individuation, the development of a unique and authentic personality. When sexual energy is constantly wasted, men become trapped in infantile patterns of instant gratification. By transmuting oneself, one evolves toward higher levels of psychological maturity. Jung's conceptual revolution explained why certain historical figures, artists, inventors, and spiritual leaders possessed a power and magnetism that transcended conventional explanations. They weren't simply talented. They were alchemists of their own life energy, transforming pure sexual force into manifest genius. Jung's discovery was not merely an academic theory. It was a practical technology of personal transformation that any man could learn and apply to revolutionize his ability to focus, discipline himself, and attract opportunities. Jung identified that sexual energy, when properly transmuted, manifests through three fundamental pillars that underlie all male success: total focus, unwavering discipline, and the magnetic ability to seize opportunities. These are separate results, integrated aspects of the same energetic transformation. When you conserve your sexual energy and consciously redirect it, something extraordinary happens in your prefrontal cortex. Jung observed that men undergoing sublimation developed a near supernatural capacity for concentration. They could work for hours without distractions, immerse themselves in complex projects, and remain focused on long-term goals. This transformation has a specific neurological basis. Conserved sexual energy optimizes the production of dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for concentration and motivation. Instead of releasing dopamine during fleeting orgasms, a steady supply builds up, fueling prolonged concentration. The brain becomes a precision machine operating at its peak. Jung documented cases of artists who, during periods of sublimation, created works in states of concentration so intense that they lost track of time. Writers who wrote entire books in a continuous creative flow, scientists who solved complex problems through sustained concentration that others considered impossible. The second pillar flows naturally from the first. Developing the ability to resist one's most primal sexual urges automatically strengthens one's discipline in all other areas. Jung called this strengthening the volitional function. The muscle of will develops through conscious exercise. Sexual energy is the most powerful human drive. When one learns to control it, all other drives become manageable in comparison. Procrastination, laziness, petty vices, all of this loses its hold on you because you have developed a resistance to the most intense force of your psyche. Jung observed that people undergoing sublimation developed what he called a positive rigidity, not a neurotic rigidity, but a great flexibility. Like a bamboo that bends without breaking, they retained their inner firmness even under extreme pressure. His decisions became unwavering because they were rooted in a discipline, tested by the fire of sexual transmutation. This discipline manifested itself in concrete terms: rising early, effortlessly, maintaining productive routines, keeping commitments even when they were restrictive, persevering with projects when others gave up. The transmuted sexual energy fueled a disciplinary machine that operated automatically. The third pillar is the most mysterious, but Jung rigorously documented it. Men who practiced conscious sublimation began to attract opportunities, people and resources in ways that defied rational explanation. Jung called this directed synchronicity. Meaningful coincidences arise from focused energy. A preserved and refined sexual energy creates a subtle magnetic field around the individual. This field attracts similar resonances: people with boundless energy, situations aligned with higher goals, opportunities that seem to appear out of nowhere. This isn't magic. It's energy physics applied to conscious manifestation. Jung observed that this magnetism operated through multiple channels. Consciously, men undergoing sublimation became more charismatic, persuasive, and influential. Unconsciously, their dense energy altered the social dynamics around them. At the archetypal level, they embodied aspects of the king and the magician, which others instinctively recognized. The most powerful aspect of Jung's discovery lay in the understanding that these three pillars reinforce each other. Increased concentration allows for deeper discipline. Strengthened discipline intensifies the ability to concentrate. Together, they amplify the magnetism that attracts opportunity, and the opportunities that arise reinforce the motivation to maintain focus and discipline. Jung demonstrated that people who mastered this triad became unwavering creative forces. Not only did they achieve their goals, but they also redefined the realm of possibilities. They transformed not only their own lives, but also exerted a positive influence on those around them. The transmutation of sexual energy, through these three pillars, represents the most powerful inner alchemy a man can master. It is the difference between living in reaction to his impulses and living in creation. Jung, deeply influenced by medieval alchemy, discovered that ancient alchemists did not simply seek to transform metals. They codified the process of transmuting human sexual energy. What they called transforming lead into gold was an accurate metaphor for converting pure sexual energy into refined spiritual power. The first step in Jungian transmutation is to honestly confront one's own patterns of energetic dissipation. Jung observed that most men live in denial about the waste of their most precious life force. During this phase, you must calmly observe your sexual urges without judging them, but also without giving in. This is a process of dissolving the sexual ego, recognizing that your identity is not tied to the frequency of your energetic discharges. Jung noted that men who skipped this phase consistently failed to transmute, lacking a clear awareness of what they were transforming. This first phase involves identifying the triggers of wasted energy, boredom, anxiety, loneliness, and stress. Jung discovered that each person has unique distraction patterns that need to be consciously mapped. Only by understanding their escape mechanisms can they begin to consciously redirect them. The second stage is energetic purification. In this phase, one learns to dissociate sexual energy from the need for release. Jung emphasized that this is the most difficult phase, as it requires developing a tolerance for increasing energetic tension without seeking automatic relief. During this purification, one experiences what Jung called suspended energy. Your libido ceases to be a compulsive drive and becomes a conscious force, available for direction. It's like learning to hold a lightning bolt in your hands without being electrocuted. It takes practice and respect for the intensity of the energy. Jung noted that men in this phase often reported vivid dreams, unexpected bursts of creativity, and moments of extraordinary mental clarity. Sexual energy, no longer devoted to physical liberation, began to seek new channels of expression through the psyche. The third stage is creative illumination. It is at this stage that the transmuted energy begins to manifest as directed creative power. Jung observed that at this stage, men developed what he called the solar function, the ability to radiate energy that illuminates and energizes everything around them. During this awakening phase, you learn to consciously channel sexual energy toward specific goals. Creative visualization, strategic planning, and rigorous execution. All of this is fueled by preserved life force. Jung documented how artists in this phase created works of genius. Entrepreneurs have built empires, and leaders have inspired multitudes. Transmuted sexual energy becomes an inner light that penetrates complex problems, illuminates non-obvious solutions, and attracts the resources needed for their manifestation. It ceases to be pure energy and becomes a refined energetic intelligence. The final stage is the complete mastery of energetic transmutation. Here, complete mastery of sexual energy is achieved. Jung observed that men at this level acted like alchemical kings, masters of their own inner kingdom. At this level, there is no longer any tension between the sexual drive and conscious direction. Energy flows naturally toward higher goals. What Jung called true libido develops, a sexual energy that contributes to the realization of one's full potential, rather than simply the pursuit of pleasure. Jung discovered that sexual alchemy is not linear, but circular. Each successful cycle of transmutation elevates you to a higher level of power and refinement. Like an upward spiral, each complete turn raises you on the ladder of inner development. The most profound aspect of this Jungian alchemy is that it transforms not only energy, but also consciousness. One doesn't just learn to control one's impulses. One becomes a superior human being, naturally capable of operating at higher frequencies. This inner alchemy operates through eternal principles that Jung rediscovered in modern language. By consciously applying these transformative processes, one doesn't just change superficial aspects of one's life. One rewrites one's fundamental energetic configuration. This is a true masterpiece, a masterful work of inner transmutation that transforms the ordinary person into a magician of his own reality. Jung foresaw processes that modern neuroscience confirms with scientific precision. What he called the sublimation of the libido corresponds to measurable neurological changes that optimize brain function in extraordinary ways. Jungian magic rests on a solid biological basis. By conserving sexual energy, the brain's reward system is completely revolutionized. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for motivation and focus, ceases to function with sudden fluctuations. Instead of dropping sharply during orgasm and then crashing, it maintains high and stable levels. Jung observed that sublimated men developed sustained motivation, the ability to maintain their interest and energy for projects over long periods. Modern neuroscience explains it. Stabilized dopamine levels create a state of sustained flow, where focus and pleasure merge to achieve superior performance. This dopamine revolution also eliminates what Jung called willpower dispersion. When dopamine is constantly wasted on sexual gratification, the brain develops a tolerance and requires increasingly intense stimuli to feel motivated. Energy conservation restores natural sensitivity and transforms daily tasks into intrinsically rewarding experiences. Jung observed that sublimated men developed superior executive abilities, strategic planning, impulse control, and complex decision-making. Neuroscience reveals that sexual energy conservation specifically optimizes the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for these higher functions. Sexual energy, when not wasted, is redirected to the neural networks involved in self-control and long-term vision. This explains why Jung observed that men undergoing transmutation naturally developed an imperial temperament, the ability to govern themselves and influence others through a refined presence. Jung demonstrated that sexual sublimation creates a state of profound calm and alert tranquility, conducive to decision-making under pressure. Neuroscience identifies this phenomenon as the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, responsible for restorative states that optimize regeneration and growth. By no longer wasting energy on bouts of compulsive sexual desire, the nervous system can devote more resources to cellular regeneration, memory consolidation, and the creative process. Jung observed that men subjected to sublimation appeared to age more slowly and had greater physical endurance, effects explained by parasympathetic optimization. Jung noted that men practicing energy transmutation acquired new skills with surprising speed. Conserving sexual energy accelerates neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections and adapt to challenges. Conserved vital energy provides abundant resources for building new neural networks. Like a gardener redirecting water from useless areas to priority plants, sexual sublimation irrigates brain regions involved in learning and creativity with energetic nutrition. Premium, Jung observed that sublimation created an integration between logical thinking and creative intuition. Neuroimaging studies reveal that energy conservation promotes synchronization between the cerebral hemispheres. The left analytical and right creative hemispheres begin to function in a more coordinated manner. This synchronization explains why Jung saw humans as undergoing transmutation, developing seemingly superhuman abilities, instant problem-solving, sudden creative insights, and the ability to interpret people and situations with extraordinary accuracy. Jungiana's transformation is based on comprehensive hormonal optimization. Conserving energy not only increases testosterone levels, but also balances the entire hormonal axis. Growth hormone increases, cortisol decreases, and insulin is optimized. The result is a body functioning at higher parameters, what Jung called transcendent vitality. Jung intuited that people undergoing sublimation develop a magnetic presence detectable by others. Neuroscience has discovered that optimized brain activity generates measurable bioelectric fields. When you operate in states of heightened neural coherence, you literally radiate frequencies that others subconsciously perceive as power or authority. This discovery validates Jung's observation that energetic transmutation not only transforms the individual, but also alters their ability to influence their social environment and even attract opportunities through energetic resonance. Jung's genius lay in his ability to intuitively recognize processes that science could only map and explain. Decades later, Jung discovered that transmuted sexual energy activates specific masculine archetypes latent in the collective unconscious. By learning to channel one's libido, one not only develops skills but also embodies the primordial aspects of a superior masculinity that others instinctively recognize and respond to automatically. When sexual energy is consciously sublimated, one activates what Jung called the king archetype, the ability to command respect and obedience through a magnetic presence. This is not forced domination, but a natural authority emanating from a refined inner power. Jung observed that people who mastered energetic transmutation developed an authentic gaze, a visual intensity that communicated without words. His preserved energy created a human, gravitational field that organized the social dynamics around him. Others naturally sought his approval, followed his leadership, and respected his decisions. The inner king emerges when we stop wasting our life, energy on secondary pleasures and invest it in goals worthy of royalty. Our focus becomes imperial, our discipline unwavering. Their opportunities multiply because they radiate an energetic legitimacy that attracts resources. Sexual sublimation activates the warrior archetype. This is not destructive violence, but rather a mastered and strategically applied force. Jung observed that men who experienced transmutation developed a courage that was not based on the absence of fear, but on an inner energy sufficient to transcend all intimidation. The transmuted warrior uses sexual energy as a form of tireless perseverance. He does not give up because he possesses reserves of energy that others have wasted. He is not intimidated because his inner strength is constant and does not depend on any external validation. He becomes invincible because he has learned to channel his most primal strength toward conscious goals. Jung observed that this archetype manifests itself not only in physical courage, but also in spiritual combat, the ability to fight against one's own limitations, to destroy self-destructive patterns, and to conquer inner territories previously dominated by unconscious impulses. Energetic transmutation activates the magician archetype, the ability to manifest realities through concentrated will. Jung observed that people who mastered sublimation developed seemingly supernatural abilities, precise intuition, synchronized precision, and the ability to influence events through focused concentration. The inner magician emerges when sexual energy transforms into pure creative energy. Ideas flow like a torrent, solutions arise spontaneously. Projects flourish in ways that defy conventional logic. The preserved life force transforms into a power of manifestation that others observe with wonder and mystery. Jung documented how artists, inventors, and visionaries, through sublimation, created brilliant works that influenced generations. This wasn't just talent. It was sexual energy transmuted into transcendent creativity, connected to universal archetypes. The deepest paradox of Diana's sublimation is that retaining sexual energy doesn't diminish attraction. Instead, it intensifies it exponentially. The archetype of the transmuted lover represents a refined sexual magnetism, which attracts not out of necessity, but out of inner abundance. Jung observed that men undergoing sublimation became irresistibly attractive because they radiated a dense, controlled sexual energy. Women experienced their preserved energy as a superior reproductive power. It was not sexual desperation, but sexual dominance that conveyed the capacity for protection, sustenance, and transcendental pleasure. The transmuted lover attracts with his mystery and depth. His energy is not easily obtained. It must be earned by a corresponding quality. This automatically elevates the caliber of those drawn into his orbit. Jung discovered that men, in the midst of sublimation, integrated the four archetypes into a coherent and powerful personality. They were kings of leadership, warriors of perseverance, magicians of creativity, and lovers of magnetism. This integration created a multidimensional presence that others perceived as charismatic or inspiring. Transmuted sexual energy has become the fuel for the expression of the higher aspects of masculinity, encoded in the human collective unconscious. By embodying these archetypes through conscious sublimation, you not only transform your individual life, but you also connect with the eternal patterns of masculine power that influence others on levels beyond rational understanding. This is true Jungian magic, using sexual energy to activate archetypal potentials that transform you, transforming you from an ordinary person into a primordial force of creation and leadership. Jung didn't just offer a theory. He developed specific practical techniques for transforming sexual energy into focus, discipline, and manifestation. These methods are the result of decades of personal experimentation and clinical observation. They are precise tools for daily inner alchemy. Jung discovered that conscious breathing was essential for channeling sexual energy. When you feel a sexual urge arise, instead of resisting or giving into it, you transform it through directed breathing. Inhale deeply, visualizing sexual energy rising up your spine. Exhale, directing this energy toward your current goal. This technique works because conscious breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, creating a state of alertness and calm where energy can be redirected. Jung observed that men who practiced this breathing technique developed automatic impulse control and the ability to channel sexual arousal into creative productivity. Practice this technique especially during times of heightened sexual tension. It is precisely these moments that hold the greatest potential for transmutation. Like pressure that can generate a destructive explosion or constructive energy, intense sexual urges are privileged opportunities for inner alchemy. Jung developed a specific method for redirecting sexual energy through conscious visualization. When sexual energy builds up, instead of seeking physical release, you mentally direct it toward your primary goals. Visualize your life force fueling your priority project, illuminating solutions, and attracting necessary resources. This visualization should be precise and sensory. Jung noted that the more vivid the mental image, the more effective the transmutation. Observe how your sexual energy transforms into inspiration for your art, determination for your business, magnetism for your relationships, and clarity for your decisions. The key is to do this during moments of authentic sexual arousal, not simply as a mental exercise. The energy must be present to be transmuted. Jung notes that men who practiced guided visualization began to automatically associate sexual arousal with creative productivity. When sexual urges arise, Jung recommended immediately directing any tension toward a stimulating mental task, not as a distraction, but as a channel. Sexual energy becomes the fuel for heightened concentration. Immerse yourself deeply in a complex problem, a creative project, or an intense learning experience. Jung observed that this technique not only prevented energy from being lost, but also created states of fluidity where productivity multiplied exponentially. Sexual energy directed toward mental activity produced seemingly superhuman results, instant solutions, revolutionary ideas, explosive creativity. Practice it especially during times of heightened sexual tension. Use this energy as fuel to accomplish feats that require deep concentration. Jung documented artists creating masterpieces during these states of transmuted focus. Jung discovered that sexual energy could be channeled into intense physical activity with extraordinary results. Exercise, manual labor, and activities requiring strength and coordination are greatly beneficial when fueled by a transmuted libido. This isn't simply a matter of exercising to burn sexual energy. It's a matter of consciously directing that energy towards superior physical performance. Jung observed that men developed greater than normal strength, endurance, and coordination when they learned to fuel their physical movements with conserved sexual energy. Ideally, you should begin physical exercise at the precise moment the sexual impulse arises. Feel the transfer of energy from genital arousal to muscular power. Jung observed that this transfer created a healthy addiction. The body then began to prioritize physical performance over momentary sexual pleasure. Jung adapted Eastern techniques to Western sublimation, a specific meditation where sexual energy is observed without judgment or action. One simply feels its intensity, its location in the body, and its variations. This non-reactive awareness gradually transforms the impulse into available conscious power. During energy meditation, Jung recommended visualizing sexual energy as a golden light concentrated in the sexual organs. Consciously breathe this light through your spine, nourishing the higher centers and illuminating your mind and heart. Don't force it. Let the energy find its natural paths of ascension. Jung recommended documenting the sublimation process daily. Note when sexual urges arise, how you channel them, and what results you observe. This written awareness greatly accelerates the development of transmutative mastery, recording correlations between energy conservation and performance. Days of better retention versus days of greater creative productivity, mental clarity and personal magnetism. Jung observed that men who kept records developed the ability to predict and optimize their energy cycles. After months or even years of practicing Jungian transmutation techniques, what Jung recognized as the transmuted man emerges, a human being with superior abilities, transcending the limitations of ordinary masculinity. This transformation is not gradual but revolutionary. The first visible result is a development of concentration, which Jung described as iron concentration. People who master energy transmutation develop the ability to maintain tension for periods that others consider impossible. They can work 8 to 10 hours without mental fatigue, immerse themselves in complex projects, and maintain a clear vision of long-term goals. This higher concentration requires no effort. It becomes natural. The transmuted sexual energy continuously feeds the brain centers, responsible for sustained attention. Jung observed men who could solve problems in a few hours, while others took months, simply through their inexhaustible mental energy. The concentration revolution also eliminates procrastination. When sexual energy is channeled into productivity, work becomes inherently enjoyable. It is no longer an obligation requiring willpower. It is the natural expression of directed life energy. The second result is discipline, which Jung called the Titanic will. Transforming men develop a resistance to temptations that are devastating to others. Not just sexual resistance, but total resistance to the impulses that distract them from their higher goals. This discipline arises naturally because you have proven that you can control the most powerful impulse in human nature. If you can channel sexual energy, any other desire, however minor, becomes manageable by comparison. Jung observed the development of self-control that others considered superhuman. Transmuted discipline also engenders extraordinary consistency. You become a man of your word because you have developed deep integrity. Your decisions become unshakable because they are based on real power, not illusions. The third result is the seemingly magical attraction of opportunities, resources, and people who align with your goals. Jung documented cases of men undergoing sublimation who appeared to have had good luck. In reality, it was an energetic magnetism that attracted synchronicities. This magnetism works through multiple mechanisms. Consciously, one becomes more charismatic, persuasive, and inspiring. Unconsciously, your dense energy shifts social dynamics in your favor. Archetypically, you embody aspects of the king and the magician that others instinctively recognize. Jung observed that people undergoing transmutation seemed to live in a different reality, where favorable coincidences were constant. It wasn't luck but concentrated energy, creating a gravitational field that optimally organized circumstances. The fourth result is a presence that Jung described as magnetic and luminous. You develop an energetic density that others physically perceive. Entering a room automatically rearranges the social dynamic. People approach you without consciously understanding why. This presence is inimitable because it emanates from a true inner power. It is not an act. It is the natural expression of a refined energy. Jung observed that men undergoing sublimation developed a hawk-like gaze that expressed wordless authority. The fifth result is an explosion of creativity, which Jung directly associates with sexual sublimation. Energy once wasted on orgasms is transformed into artistic inspiration, business innovation, and revolutionary solutions. Ideas flow freely, insights arise spontaneously, discoveries occur steadily. Jung documented cases of artists, writers, and inventors who created their masterpieces during periods of sexual sublimation. This was no coincidence. It is sexual energy transmuted into creative genius that has enabled connection to archetypal sources of inspiration. The end result of Dean's techniques is the emergence of what he calls the complete man, a being who has successfully integrated all aspects of his higher psyche, harnessing the full power of his refined and directed sexual energy. This complete man is not in conflict with his sexuality. He has transcended it through deep understanding. He does not repress his impulses, but consciously directs them toward goals worthy of his life force. He becomes a living example of what masculine potential can accomplish when properly channeled. Jung observed that these men naturally became leaders, innovators, and creators who positively influenced entire communities. Their personal transformation catalyzed the consciousness around them. This is the ultimate promise of Jungian transmutation, the evolution of an ordinary person into an extraordinary force of creation and positive change in the world. You now know Carl Jung's revolutionary method for transforming sexual energy into focus, discipline and magnetism, the source of opportunity. It's not just a psychological theory, it's a proven technology for personal evolution, effective for decades, but knowledge without application is pure intellectual masturbation. You can memorize every technique, understand every concept, agree with every word, and still remain in exactly the same place. If you lack the courage to apply this wisdom in your real life, the fundamental question is not whether these techniques, they work. Jung documented thousands of success stories. The question is whether you have the inner discipline to apply them when your most primal impulses demand immediate gratification. Look around you. Observe others. Observe how they waste their most precious life force on momentary pleasures that leave them empty, aimless and lacking true magnetism. They represent your future. And if you continue to dissipate your energy, instead of consciously transmuting it, but you can choose otherwise. You can choose to apply the human alchemy that transforms energetic lead into spiritual gold. You can choose to be the person others admire with wonder and mystery, wondering how you developed such focus, discipline, and ability to manifest realities. The process is not simple. It requires confronting one's patterns of energy escape, developing a tolerance for increased sexual attention, and learning to channel one's primal force toward more humane goals. It takes months, not days. It's a lifelong commitment, not a casual experiment. But the rewards are transformative, an approach that accomplishes in hours what takes others days. The discipline that makes you invincible in the pursuit of any goal. The magnetism that automatically attracts the people, resources, and opportunities you need to succeed. Start today, not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready, not when circumstances are perfect. The perfect moment never arrives. There is only that moment when you choose between energetic mediocrity and transmuted excellence. Take advantage of the next time you feel a sexual urge to practice focused breathing. When energy rises, channel it through visualization toward your priority project. When temptations arise, use them as fuel to strengthen your discipline. Remember, you're not just learning techniques, you're accessing the wisdom of one of the greatest minds in human psychology. Jung spent decades perfecting these methods. They are revolutionary, tried and tested. Your sexual energy is either your greatest asset or your greatest liability. It all depends on how you choose to use it. Keep it away from momentary pleasures and remain ordinary. Transform it into directed power and become extraordinary. The new man envisioned by Jung lies dormant within you, but he emerges only through conscious daily discipline. This only manifests by consistently choosing elevation over degradation. Your life is waiting to be transformed. Your potential is waiting to be unleashed. Your energy is waiting to be channeled into greatness. If this content resonates with you, subscribe to the Seeker channel for more revelations about true masculine power. Comment on true transmutation. If you're ready to apply these techniques to your life, and don't miss our other videos on semen retention, life force energy, and male spirituality. This channel isn't for everyone. It's for men who value conscious evolution over unconscious conformity. Transmutation begins right now with a single conscious breath, a single deliberate choice, a single moment in which you choose between waste and transcendence,